I'll never forget that Monday morning. The phone on the corner of my desk rang right as the clock struck 8. Margie's voice, the CEO's assistant, came through the line. "Mr. Dalton would like to see you. Now. His office." I froze mid-email. No explanation, no warning. I stood, smoothed the front of my blazer, and made my way down the quiet hallway. Luke Dalton, CEO of ArcLight & Company, wasn't the kind of man who called you in casually. His office was as cold as his demeanor. Sleek glass walls, minimalist furniture, and an unsettling stillness. "Have a seat," he said without looking up from his laptop. I sat, hands folded in my lap, hiding the tremor I felt in my fingers. Something was wrong. I knew it before he even spoke again. "I received a call from Noah Bryant at Peralt Group," he said, finally raising his eyes to meet mine. "Apparently you interviewed with them last Thursday." I opened my mouth, unsure if I should confirm or explain, but he cut me off with a raised hand, like I was a child interrupting a teacher. "Don't deny it. They confirmed you were there. You requested personal emergency leave that afternoon, didn't you?" I nodded, throat tight. "After all this company has done for you, this is how you repay us? Job hunting behind our backs?" Us, the word rang hollow. In the 6 years I'd worked for ArcLight, I'd never once been given a raise. I'd turned around failing accounts, soothed furious clients, and stayed late more nights than I could count. Yet every performance review ended with praise but no promotion. Luke stood and reached into a folder on his desk. He slid a termination letter toward me. "I'm sorry, Jenna, but this ends here. Your access has been revoked. You'll be escorted out by security. Please gather your things by 10. No yelling, no drama, just cold corporate efficiency." I stood numb and left the office without another word. No parting shot, no defense, just quiet dignity. As the elevator descended, I stared at the cardboard box in my hands. 6 years of my life packed into a few square inches. And then my phone buzzed. "Jenna, this is Noah Bryant. If you're available this afternoon, we'd like to move forward with the final interview step." I smiled. Luke Dalton had just let go of the one person holding their most important client, and he didn't even know it yet. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, the shock had faded. In its place was something heavier, not sadness, not fear, just clarity. I set the small box on my kitchen counter, leaned against the island and stared at it. Inside were little tokens of a life I'd built at ArcLight, photos, client thank you cards, a paperweight shaped like a compass. Ironic, really. For years I'd felt directionless, yet I was the one keeping that place on course. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down, and for the first time in months, I let myself remember everything. I joined ArcLight right out of grad school, master's in strategic communications, full of ambition and optimism. My starting role? Junior assistant on the corporate accounts team. I scheduled meetings, took notes, made coffee, and said yes a lot. But I didn't stay there. I worked late, volunteered for the projects no one wanted, and shadowed every high performer I could. I built relationships with clients that others couldn't handle. I listened more than I talked, and within 2 years, I was managing full accounts solo. By year 4, I'd landed Silver Pine Capital, one of the most demanding clients in the agency's history. Everyone else had walked away from them, but I took it as a challenge. 3 months later, they not only stayed, they expanded their retainer by 40%. I thought that would be the turning point. My first request for a raise came after that win. I had the metrics, client retention, upsell numbers, testimonials. I even brought a market salary report for my position. Luke had smiled in that way he did, thin, polite, dismissive. "It's been a tough quarter," he'd said. "You're doing excellent work, Jenna. Let's revisit this in 6 months. I believed him. 6 months later, I'd secured 2 more major contracts and helped the agency land an industry award. I asked again. This time it was, "We're investing in tech infrastructure." Same smile, same brush off, year 6. Silver Pine doubled their contract again, thanks to a strategy I built from scratch. Luke's response? "We value you, Jenna, but the board wants to be conservative this year. Let's talk in the fall." Fall came. Nothing changed. It wasn't just the money, it was the message. That I was good enough to carry the company's biggest accounts, good enough to clean up messes others made, but not good enough to invest in, not good enough to promote. I didn't complain, I didn't gossip, I just endured. Until one night, about 2 months ago when I sat at my desk long after everyone had left, I looked around that beige, outdated office and felt something shift. I opened my laptop and updated my resume. Not out of spite, not even out of ambition, out of self-respect. Noah Bryant from Perot had reached out after seeing my profile on LinkedIn. A casual message turned into a phone call. The phone call became an interview, and the interview, well, it was supposed to lead to something. I just didn't know I'd be forced to find out this way. My phone buzzed again. Olivia, my best friend since college. Thomas just told me, you okay? Thomas worked in ArcLight's IT department. He must have seen my access get revoked. I'm fine, I replied, still processing. I swear, if Luke calls this a loyalty issue, I will scream. Everyone knows you kept Silverpine from walking out. This is on him. She wasn't wrong. Luke always hated that Silverpine's CEO, Marion Callow, insisted I be in every meeting, that she emailed me directly, praised me publicly. He wanted to be the one in control, but control doesn't equal leadership. And today, he'd proven it. At 12:15, my phone rang again. Noah. Jenna, he said, we've cleared time for 2:30 this afternoon if you're still interested. I am, I replied without hesitation. Good, and Jenna? Yes? I'm sorry to hear how things ended at ArcLight, but from where I'm standing, it might just be the best thing that ever happened to you. At 2:15 p.m., I stood in front of the Perot Group headquarters, 12 floors of sleek glass and steel in downtown Seattle, overlooking the water. A far cry from the worn-down beige walls and buzzing fluorescent lights at ArcLight. I checked my reflection in the glass before entering. I looked sharp, confident, ready, even if I didn't entirely feel that way. Inside, the lobby was calm, warm, efficient. A receptionist smiled and offered me tea while she called up to Noah. It was the kind of place that understood the value of first impressions. At exactly 2:30, the elevator doors opened and there he was, Noah Bryant. Clean-cut, calm energy, sharp suit, the kind of person who made you feel like you could exhale. Jenna, he greeted, shaking my hand. Glad you could make it. Thank you for having me, I said. My voice was steady now. The weight of the morning had shifted into something else. Focus. He led me through an open floor of collaborative spaces, soft lighting, clean lines, and employees who actually looked engaged. A few waved or smiled at Noah as we passed. No hushed silence like at ArcLight, where leadership walked like ghosts and people averted their eyes. We entered a modest conference room with a view of the bay. Noah offered me a seat and a coffee, and once we were both settled, he got to the point. I'm going to be direct, he said. I spoke with Luke Dalton this morning. My stomach clenched. He told me you were no longer with ArcLight, that he would be handling the Silverpine account himself going forward. I said nothing. I wasn't sure if this was a trap or a test. Noah leaned forward slightly. What he doesn't know is that Perot has had growing concerns about ArcLight for over a year. Inconsistencies, delays, loss of quality. Frankly, the only reason we've continued working with them is because of you. The words hit me like a gust of clean air. Your name has come up in every internal meeting, he continued. Your work ethic, your strategic mind, your ability to anticipate client needs. Marion Callow has spoken more highly of you than any account manager we've ever worked with. I felt my breath catch. I had always wondered if those long nights, the extra reports, the quiet patience had meant anything. Apparently they had. I want to be clear, Noah said. We didn't reach out to poach you. We respect professional lines, but when you submitted your resume, the timing felt right. He slid a folder across the table. This is not an interview, Jenna. It's an offer. I stared at it. Slowly opened the folder. And there it was. Director of Strategic Partnerships. Full leadership over client management. Salary, nearly double what I'd ever asked Luke Dalton for. I blinked. This is generous. It's market value, Noah said, and frankly, long overdue. We want people who know what clients need before the client does. You've proven that, over and over. I closed the folder carefully and met his gaze. I'd like to review this overnight. I want to be thorough, even when the answer is obvious. He smiled. That's exactly why we want you here. When I got home, I placed the folder next to the box I had carried out of ArcLight just hours before. One represented a place that had ignored my worth, the other a future that recognized it. I didn't need revenge, but somehow this moment felt like the beginning of it. By 6 p.m., the sun was casting golden light through my apartment windows, turning the folder on my kitchen table into a small beacon. The offer from Perot Group sat unopened again, though I'd already read every word twice. It wasn't the salary that made my heart race. It was the fact that someone finally saw my value without me having to fight for it. I had just poured a glass of water when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Hello? Jenna Walker? A woman's voice, crisp, professional. This is Susan Avery. I'm on the board at ArcLight. My hand tightened around the glass. I understand there was an incident today regarding your departure. Incident. That was one way to describe being thrown out like trash. Yes, that's correct, I said evenly. I was not made aware of your termination until this afternoon, she continued. Mr. Dalton acted without board consultation and we're currently reviewing the matter. So, the panic had set in. We'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning, Susan said, to discuss your position and future with ArcLight, privately. No, Mr. Dalton. I paused. Everything in me said, why now? But part of me was curious. I'm available at 9, I said, but just to be clear, I've received another offer. I'm not coming to negotiate a return. There was a pause on the line. Understood, Susan said, though her voice hinted otherwise. We appreciate your time. I hung up and stared at the city beyond my window. They were scared, not because they lost me, but because they might lose what I protected. Silverpine, Marion Callow, and possibly other clients who had quietly noticed the cracks. They were trying to fix a reputation they had only now realized was built on my shoulders. I didn't owe them anything, but I wanted them to hear it. From me. The next morning I arrived at ArcLight's headquarters for the last time. It felt strange walking through the front doors as a visitor. The same receptionist, Dana, looked up and blinked in surprise. Jenna, I didn't know you were coming in. I have a meeting with Susan Avery, I replied. Dana lowered her voice. Everyone's talking about what happened. You didn't deserve that. I offered a soft smile. Thank you. She handed me a visitor badge with a quiet nod, and I made my way to the executive conference room on the 12th floor. Susan Avery was already waiting, a sleek folder open in front of her. Late 50s, gray suit, perfectly styled silver hair. She had the kind of presence that said she wasn't easily impressed. Jenna, she greeted, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for coming. I sat down across from her, keeping my posture firm. I wasn't here as a former employee, I was here as someone who knew her worth. I've reviewed your personnel file, she began. 6 years of glowing performance reviews, major account growth, and 3 documented requests for salary review, all denied. Her lips pressed into a thin line. What I don't see, she continued, is any documentation that supports your termination yesterday. In fact, there is no written policy at ArcLight that prohibits seeking outside opportunities. I said nothing. She didn't need confirmation. The facts were doing the work for me. The term Mr. Dalton used, I said calmly, was disloyal. Susan raised an eyebrow. An interesting choice of words considering your track record. She paused, then folded her hands. I'll be direct. The board would like to offer you reinstatement with the title of Senior Client Director, the compensation you requested in your last review, plus a 15% increase. We recognize now that your contributions have been undervalued. It was the kind of offer I had begged for, years ago. Now it was too late. I appreciate the offer, I said, keeping my tone even, but I've already accepted a new position. I start Monday. At Perot, Susan asked, not as a question. I neither confirmed nor denied. Jenna, she said, leaning forward, if this is about money, it's not, I cut in, gently but firmly. It's about respect, recognition, trust, all things I've been missing here for years. Susan nodded slowly. Then may I ask, what could we have done differently? I took a breath, looked her in the eye, recognized my value before I had to go looking for it somewhere else. As I left the building, I didn't feel angry or smug or even vindicated. I felt free. It wasn't about walking away from ArcLight anymore. It was about walking towards something better. Monday morning arrived with a quiet sort of anticipation. I woke before my alarm, not out of anxiety, but because I was ready. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading the workday. I wasn't rehearsing how to justify my worth. I didn't need to. Today, I started my new role at Perot Group. I arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist greeted me like I belonged there, which already felt like a miracle. A neat welcome basket sat on my new desk, snacks, a branded coffee tumbler, and a handwritten note from Noah that read, "We're glad you're here. Let's build something great." It didn't feel like a gimmick. It felt sincere. At 9 a.m. sharp, Noah stopped by to walk me through the day. Jenna, I'd like to introduce you to your team. My team. He led me into a bright conference room where 5 faces turned toward me, each one smiling, open, eager. These are your direct reports, he said. They'll be helping you manage and evaluate all external partnerships, creative agencies, strategy consultants, campaign vendors. That includes, well, ArcLight. The name hung in the air for a beat, but no one flinched. I smiled and greeted each team member by name. The room didn't feel heavy. It felt like a blank canvas. Later that afternoon, Noah called me into a smaller strategy session. Around the table sat the CFO, CMO, and legal counsel. Something was happening. We wanted to loop you in early, Noah said, since you have unique insight into one of our long-standing vendors. He tapped a folder in front of him. ArcLight's contract is up for renewal next month, and frankly, we're not sure we want to keep the partnership. The CFO chimed in. We've been reviewing performance reports and cross-team feedback. Other agencies have been more responsive, more innovative. The CMO added, we respect your objectivity, but your input would be valuable in helping us evaluate options. It would have been so easy to say it, to let my emotions speak, to burn the bridge behind me and never look back, but instead, I kept it measured, professional. I think ArcLight should be evaluated like any other vendor, I said. Their work has been strong in some areas, but consistency and leadership engagement are weak. That's something to weigh seriously. Heads nodded around the table. I wasn't gloating, I wasn't vengeful, I was simply being heard. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and saw an email in my inbox, sent at 4:03 p.m. Subject contract decision ArcLight and Company. It was official. Perot had chosen to transition away from ArcLight to a new agency, effective immediately. Attached was a professional, neutral message to be sent to Luke Dalton and his team, and below that, point of contact for transition, Jenna Walker. I stared at the screen for a long time, not out of shock but because everything had come full circle. I didn't chase revenge, but it found its way back to me, wrapped in professionalism, tied with a bow made of dignity. Wednesday, 11 a.m. sharp. The official termination notice went out from Perot's legal department. ArcLight and Company was informed that their contract, worth nearly 30% of their annual revenue, would not be renewed. The decision was final, no room for negotiation, and the contact person handling the entire transition? Me. I didn't gloat, I didn't call anyone, I didn't post about it. I just sat in my new office, looked out the window, and took a deep breath. By 1 p.m., messages started rolling in. The first was from Thomas, ArcLight's IT guy, still dating Olivia, still the office's quiet observer. Victoria and Luke are locked in crisis meetings. 3 account managers are updating their resumes. You should see the panic. Karma's moving fast. I didn't reply. Then came a LinkedIn request from Dana, the receptionist. With it, a message. The office feels hollow without you. Everyone knows you carried Silverpine. Just wanted to say thank you. And good luck. I accepted her request with a short, sincere reply. Thank you for your kindness. Wishing you the best. Always. That was all. No bitterness, no victory lap, just closure. In the days that followed, I stayed busy onboarding Perot's new agency, introducing them to Silverpine's leadership, and establishing a smooth handoff. Marion Callow called me personally. Perot made the right move, she said, and you, well, they're lucky to have you. Her voice held warmth and respect, the kind of respect that ArcLight never seemed able or willing to give. A month later, Susan Avery reached out once more, not to persuade me back, not to undo what had been done, just to ask a simple question. Would you be open to speaking at our next leadership offsite? About employee retention, leadership blind spots, that kind of thing. I considered it, and then I politely declined. Some lessons don't need to be taught, they just need to be felt. A year later I sat in a different conference room with a new team, new challenges, and a promotion already on the table. I had doubled Perot's agency efficiency, slashed vendor delays, and rebuilt trust across 5 departments. Not because I had to prove anything, but because I finally had the space to do what I do best. And that cardboard box from ArcLight, still in my closet, untouched, a quiet reminder of who I used to be and how far I had come. Final reflection. I didn't burn bridges, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't fight to stay where I wasn't wanted. I left with dignity, and I built something better, because sometimes the best revenge is living a life where you never need revenge at all.